Most of us spend a lot of time managing our bodies on demand. So we'll push through when something hurts or we're in pain, and we'll tell ourselves to calm down when we feel anxious. And we get frustrated often when our body won't do what we want it to do. Most of us have never been taught how it actually works, so not in any kind of practical or useful sense. So we might know when something doesn't feel right, but we rarely know why, or we don't arrive at the answer very quickly. And so this is what this video is about. And I want to share something with you at the end of it that I think will be genuinely really helpful for you watching. And of course, if you're a teacher of any kind, it will be useful for your students also, because that's kind of what we do. So we're going to talk about the nervous system for a little bit. And the nervous system is not just a background process, although we often treat it as if it is. So your nervous system is making real-time decisions for you constantly. So it's monitoring what's happening around you, and it's scanning for things that it thinks might be a threat or might be safe. And then what it does is it produces a physical and an emotional response based on what it concludes. So if you've got a difficult conversation coming up the next day, for example, or even in a couple of hours, you'll get that slight knot or sicky feeling in your stomach. If you feel like you're under pressure at any point, your thoughts will speed up, your heart rate rises a little bit. And if you're trying to get through your to-do list at midnight the day before when you really should be going to sleep, then you're not going to be able to go to sleep afterwards. And so none of those things are random. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do. And it's not a problem that it's doing it either. The problem is that most of us have never been taught how to work with it rather than against it. And so what happens is we fight it. So we'll tell ourselves things like just chill out or slow down or just go to sleep or stop overthinking or something similar. But when your nervous system just receives demands as the returning response from you, then what it does is it interprets that as further evidence that something must be wrong. And so it will double down on the protective response that it's giving you. So an example of that could be maybe you're lying in your bed Sunday night and you've got your mind just won't stop. You've got loads of things to do tomorrow, let's say, and maybe a conversation that is just you're really not looking forward to. Now, we've all been there. And the more you tell yourself to just go to sleep, the more awake you become. So you're going to get frustrated with yourself for not sleeping, which your nervous system then reads as another threat. And then that just makes it harder to sleep, which makes you more and more frustrated. And we've all been in that loop, right? Now, it's because the instinct is to try and push through it. But when you are trying to demand calm from a system that is in the process of trying to protect you, that demanding state is then precisely what keeps it running. The nervous system just doesn't respond to instructions. Do this, don't do this, stop doing that, those kind of things. It responds to signals, and frustration and demand are pretty powerful signals that something must be wrong. So the foundational step is understanding what your nervous system is actually doing. And once you've done that, you can then begin to build a slightly different relationship with it. And that different relationship comes from giving your brain new information. So primarily that you are safe, that you're paying attention, and that you're working with it rather than against it. And we need to do that more than once. So we need to consistently repeat that messaging. And over time, what that does is it changes the baseline. And what I mean by that is your nervous system has a kind of default setting. So it's kind of like the resting level of alertness that it will return to when nothing much is really happening around you. So for some people, that default is just genuinely really calm, very laid back, nice place to be. But for a lot of people, especially after a sustained period of stress, that default creeps upwards. And so the nervous system just gets used to running just ever so slightly hot. So you're not at full panic. You're just at a level that never quite switches off. And you will inevitably stop noticing it because it start to become normal. But what that means is every day you're just slightly closer to the edge than you should be, which is why small things can then start to feel disproportionately hard or frustrating or they set you off, or switching off in the evening just takes a lot longer than it used to. And that's your baseline. So what consistent practice does, the kind this course is built around, is gradually bring that baseline back down. So it's not going to happen immediately or in one session. We need a few weeks, which is why the course is structured the way it is. And we've built a 5-week course called Your Brain, Your Body. And it's on the Council Clouds platform. It has been designed primarily for students aged 16 and above, so sixth formers, young adults, and they're in that part of their life where they're navigating slightly increased pressure, just that comes with that stage of life. But really, the content applies to anyone. And I say that as someone who's done it myself. So if you work in a school and you're watching this and you are dealing with a level of sustained pressure or frustration, or you have pain in your body, or you feel stressed, this course will be equally relevant to you. So here's what the 5 weeks cover. Week 1 is about your nervous system. So what it is, what the stress response actually is, and why fighting it is part of the problem. Week 2 is about learning to listen and hear your body, not just to fix it immediately, but to notice it, which, by the way, is far more important than the fixing part. Week 3 addresses the habit of constantly monitoring how you feel or scanning for signs that something's wrong. And that's particularly relevant for people who are dealing with a lot of stress or pain, because that habit is often what keeps the anxiety running. So it's not even the original stressor anymore. Week 4 introduces a breathing practice that shifts your nervous system from alert mode into recovery mode. And it sounds simple because it is, but the research behind it is really, really solid, and the results are cumulative. And week 5 is about dealing with setbacks, because the brain doesn't just change in a straight line. And so understanding what to do when things go temporarily kind of backwards or sideways is as important as knowing what to do when things are going really well. Each episode is really short, so the weekly practice is very manageable, but what it requires is consistency. So showing up to the same episode a few times a week, even when it feels like you might not be getting anything from it, because that repetition is so important. It's the same principle behind pretty much everything we do at Council Clouds. So small, repeated practice builds something that a one-off session will never do. And the nervous system responds to signals and patterns. So if you give it a new pattern consistently, I promise you it will learn. Now, the reason that we're sharing this with you and making it free is twofold. So the first is we genuinely think this course will help people, and we'd rather it reached more people than it just being sat behind a paywall that prevents that from happening. The second is transparency. So we talk a lot about what Council Clouds does and what structured emotional learning looks like in practice, and what it feels like to engage with our content. And this is an opportunity for us to actually show you rather than just continually describe it. So if you're considering this platform for your students, this is going to be a direct window into the kind of thing that they'd be working through. So you can try it for yourself first and see what you think. So here's the challenge. It's 5 weeks, 1 episode per week, and that gets repeated a few times within that week. And that's the commitment. It's really not intensive, but it's 5 weeks of small, consistent practice that takes minutes out of your day. And our request, though, is that you don't just dip in and then dip out, and that you give it a real full run before you decide whether it's done anything or had an impact. Because even if it feels simple, it's supposed to. And the compounding and cumulative effects will show up later if you're still there for it. So the link to access the course is in the comments below. It's completely free. There's no sign-up process that's designed to annoy you. It's just a course. And if you try it, whether you're a teacher doing it for yourself or you pass it on to your students or both, we'd genuinely like to know how it goes, what shifted, what didn't, what surprised you. Because that's the kind of feedback that is going to make our content better and better over time. So 5 weeks, start this week. Be curious about where it could take you. And I really, really hope that you enjoy it.